Hello, Citizen Science Association Conference attendees. My name is Maggie Gaddis, and today I'm going to talk to you about my dissertation research. I'm sorry I cannot be there with you. My flight was canceled due to the weather here in Colorado, but trust me, I would much rather be there with you in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina. This dissertation inquiry investigated citizen science training and its perceived effectiveness. The general problem is that some scientists and land managers view the data collected by citizen scientists as unreliable. This results in a lower confidence in and scientific use of citizen scientist collected data. The specific problem is the absence of educational training measurement in citizen science. This would help us to ascertain the learning gains of trained citizen scientists. Citizen scientists are increasingly important to the implementation and ongoing assessment of ecological restoration, species identification, ecological monitoring, and of course, citizen science is present in myriad other scientific contexts. But this is the parameter for my research because I am a restoration ecologist trained by my master's education. The literature revealed three foci of scholarly citizen science inquiry. The first, citizen science literacy gains are very important to scholars. Also, the credibility of data collected by citizen scientists, and third, the usefulness and economic benefits of volunteers to natural resource management and monitoring. My research is really focused on these first two streams. Taking a look at the citizen science literature at large, you can see exponential growth in the citizen science literature in the last decade, largely due to the 2009 public participation in scientific research funding. So looking at the citizen science literature, 5% of over 150 scholarly documents reference training. I looked specifically at the Journal of Citizen Science Theory and Practice, and 10% of the articles in this journal address training. Citizen science has the potential to increase the scale of data collection, but data error and bias are poorly understood. Therefore, discussions of data quality are the most numerous discussions in the literature currently. As you can see, we're really asking to solve a problem about data quality in the literature, but we are not looking specifically at the vectors for producing data quality. Training, therefore, and learning in citizen science need to be studied more. There is a collection of papers to support a simple conclusion that training is valuable regardless of its design. All studies that address training do so in one of two ways. Some present a simple fact of programming, the vast majority. And then there's a very small subset of papers that look at training as the premise of the research. So Kroll and Newman found that citizen scientists are proficient at collecting simple data, but their data quality decreases with increasing data collection challenge. And citizen scientists struggle with procedural and GPS skills. They found that citizen scientists perform equally well with live or video training and better than static documents alone. So you can see in this design, live or video or static documents were the levels of the treatment called training. And then the trainees went out into the field and collected data, identified species. This kind of methodology was confirmed by research done by Starr in 2014. The purpose of my research was to identify patterns in themes and content, instructional design, theoretical alignment, and perceived efficacy of training for citizen scientists tasked with collecting data in the field. My first research question was, what are the characteristics of citizen science trainings designed to train volunteers to collect ecological data in natural land settings? And how do organizational leaders describe their perception of the efficacy of the trainings to produce reliable data? So there is a theoretical framework behind this. I got my PhD in education, right? So Here are some of the foundations for the design. Educational experiences contribute to learning. I think we can all get on board with that. And the acquisition of procedural knowledge is possible in a training setting outside of academia. And we can all get on board with that, at least everyone in this room, because we all work in the citizen science environment. And then from education perspective, andragogy and backwards design are learning and design principles that are successful in other contexts. For example, higher education, aviation training, medical science training. I used a qualitative multiple case study design because it affords a breadth of information from which themes can be extrapolated. And also in all of my searching in the literature, there's no observational study that characterizes citizen science training. And that is typically the first stepping stone in a research stream to do an observational study. So the research design was exploratory in nature, but I am a quantitative researcher by previous training, and therefore the sequential investigative steps really drove this into the realm of descriptive case study design. I collected both text-based and numeric data in one analytical tool, and then I used a sequence of processes to collect and analyze the data. I found a purposive sample by releasing a research solicitation to the members of the CSA.org database. CSA.org, as I hope you are all familiar, is an open source data management tool for individuals and organizations conducting citizen science of any kind. So this is what my data process looked like in a visual sense. I solicited the CSA database or membership, cases were identified. From those cases, I was delivered the documents, all the documents that supported that citizen science training program. Once I had the documents, I could really start to work on the descriptive codes, and then I released a survey. The survey provided a lot of quantitative data. And then the final approach was to interview the training leaders. By the time I was interviewing training leaders, I was so familiar with the 22 training programs that I could really predict their responses. And this indicates data reliability and qualitative data analysis. And the 3 sequential steps are a method of triangulation. So after reviewing the literature, not too many people do research on how many cases should you have in a multiple case study, but I did find a couple and I did talk to my colleagues, and my goal was 15 to 36 cases. This final discussion represents 22 cases. Are we there yet? Yes, but more cases are requesting participation, so I think you'll hear from me again. In the document analysis, the deductive codes started to be developed. They were already in my mind from doing all the literature review, but these became a framework for analyzing the data in the case study database. This process of predetermined deductive codes is called directed content analysis. So I was looking for information in the documents that related to certain bins of information about characterizing the training. I looked at 83 training artifacts, and in one conclusion, evaluation documents were underrepresented, which I'll talk about a bit more. And one code I really didn't predict before this part of the sequence was train the trainer, that there would be a whole bunch of documents that were specifically related to how to train an instructor to train citizen scientists. And finally, field engagements were not well represented in this step of the research. You can see that we had a variety of resources being monitored in these 22 cases, but generally speaking, it was an equitable representation across marine, riparian, and terrestrial environments. Now moving to the survey and semi-structured interview phases. These shed light on the perception of data reliability, the demographics, program statistics, and evidence of theoretical alignment, which I'm going to talk about first. So let's all get on board with my world of PhD in education. Adult education is called Andragogy, and the 5 principles of Andragogy are simply that adults want to solve real-world problems. They bring prior knowledge to the table, and this needs to be activated in the learning experience. Adults like to be demonstrated what it is that they need to learn how to do. Adults emphasize the practicality of the learning in their minds so that they can apply the new knowledge to their own world. So looking at these, activating prior knowledge. When you see a question or a response in yellow, that is authentic to the research process. So how do you activate citizen scientists' prior knowledge and training? Social learning and life experience. Tenets of adult learning. Motivation. How do you motivate citizen scientists to persist in their roles? Intrinsic motivation and social engagement. See, some themes are arising already. One thing that really made me laugh was one respondent said, "Could an adult be motivated by a bagel?" I don't think I need to say more. I don't think that we are willing to get ourselves dirty, climb mountains, dive with sharks to get a bagel. Solving real-world problems. One respondent said, all of this is real-world. And I just want to leave you with a couple of really high-impact cases that I discovered through this research. So 350,000 invertebrates are tagged and many are recovered in another country. This is how we do citizen science on migratory species. Cessation of natural resource extraction from water temperature and clarity measurement. Looks like citizen scientists going out alone, measuring water quality, and going directly to the authorities when the parameters are violated, and this stops natural resource extraction processes. And we can find species in our oceans and track them all around the world, thanks to a group of divers who noticed a species they were unfamiliar with, and they sought more information and started a citizen science program. Data collected in this analysis validates the deductive assumption that training can impart the knowledge required for citizen science participation. In other words, people without terminal degrees in science can contribute to the scientific enterprise. The literature review indicated that there would be an inherent learning outcome in most citizen science programs. After training, citizen scientists will learn how to collect reliable data. I found that all cases iterated this assumed learning outcome. Now, when you start with the learning outcome, this looks a lot like backwards design, the principle of instructional design in which you identify the learning outcomes, then the assessments, then the learning activities. However, evidence of backwards design was not found in these 22 cases. As I mentioned before, only 16% of the training documents processed in the document analysis related to evaluation, and I see this as an opportunity for improvement. So throughout the cases, there was a bimodal training characterization, and this was a very strong conclusion that I did not expect. But there's a whole bunch of citizen science programs where there's live training, complex data sheets, refresher trainings that feed on that social engagement piece. And in the case of water quality monitoring, there's really quantitative parametric QA/QC analysis to validate the reliability of citizen science data, but we're not seeing that in the literature. And then on the other side of the spectrum, there is a bunch of citizen science going out there that is really photo-based. And this requires, in the training world, simple tutorials, asynchronous onboarding, little training burden at all, and sometimes no social engagement. But this produces research grade data because people consider photos to be research grade data. So looking at how the managers characterize data reliability, do you think your citizen scientists are collecting reliable data? 100% of the survey respondents replied yes. How reliable do you think the data is that your citizen scientists collect? 82% ranked 6 of 7 in the Likert scale. I wanted to mention again this QA/QC effort coming out of the water quality data. There's high accuracy in the citizen science data coming from this area. There are really amazing quantitative parametric data sitting out there that are not published. When I look at data reliability of over 80%, I immediately think of an R squared value that is high and acceptable in a parametric sense. And I think that's what we need to really support our discipline and differentiate when we're talking about citizen science and the various kinds of data we might be collecting. These remarkable data reliability results are not reported in the literature. Do you think the data collected by your citizen scientists could be used in scientific analysis? I do think so, but here again we see this comment supporting these literature conclusions that the reliability of citizen scientists' collected data may be related to the skill required to perform the data collection task. As I've mentioned several times now, evaluation is underrepresented in this investigation. If formal evaluative components build credibility, they provide an opportunity for just-in-time mentoring, they improve your curriculum, they improve your data reliability, and facilitate a meta-analysis of training efforts over a longitudinal perspective. Finally, I just want to make this important comment that sweeping judgments about data reliability in citizen science are inappropriate. My research suggests that citizen scientists are capable of collecting research-grade data, especially in the realms of water quality data, photo data, and single species identification. What citizen scientists do, this is my concluding remark. One respondent provided the following summation. Site-specific and regional analysis led to the conclusion that this data is analogous to what has been collected by professional scientists and in partnership with the state university. The scientists are doing research and they are working with our volunteers to expand their data collection capacities. Thank you very much for your attention. I want to thank my family and my committee members, Dr. Kim Fontex, Dr. Greg Newman, Dr. Dahl, and Dr. Bradley. Without my support network, none of this would have been possible. And I was a working student. I was teaching the whole time I was in school, and so I appreciate the opportunity actually to work as a contract employee in academia while also being a student. I'd note that because that is another part of my life that I didn't fully discuss. But hey, before I got my PhD, I was a citizen scientist in my own world. So thank you all for your efforts. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can look me up on LinkedIn. Thanks so much.